What's up everyone? I'm Ryan. I live in Ecuador and I've been living in foreign countries for the past 7 years. In those 7 years, I haven't really had a real job, and that's what this video is about, how I've been able to live what I think is an amazing life without having to work for the man.
For 40 hours a week, I'm in charge of your life.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
I don't like to use the word retired. It's not like I'm not working, I'm just not working on anything that I don't want to work on. I've monetized my hobbies. I only do what I want to do and when I want to do it. There's a lot to talk about. I'm going to tell you how I do it, what inspired me to do it, what I do for money, and a whole lot more. So stay tuned.
Y'all don't know people like this. Y'all don't know people like this. Y'all don't know people like this.
The year is 2012. A young Ryan and Sarah are traveling Southeast Asia for the very first time. Thailand, Cambodia, Laos, and then a long bus ride to Vietnam. On that bus ride, I started reading Tim Ferriss's 4-Hour Work Week, and that's when the idea was planted in my head that I should maybe get off of this treadmill that is a career. A few days later, with my mind racing, I couldn't sleep, so I got up and went for a walk. I found a lady selling some noodle soup, and I pulled up a plastic stool, ordered up a bowl of noodles and an iced coffee. There was something about that bowl of noodles. Maybe it was magical. I doubt that. But it was one of the best things I had ever eaten. This bowl of curry duck noodles made me so happy, so content, and it was only $1. What did I really want out of life? Why was I busting my ass working for random companies to help them grow their wealth? My dad had passed away just a couple years earlier, and he was just 1 year away from retirement. It's all he could talk about was just retiring, taking a motorcycle trip up to Alaska. He was really excited, but he didn't make it. And that weighs very heavy on a young Ryan. I wasn't gonna make that same mistake. As Tim Ferriss mentions in his book, why are we working through the prime of our lives to retire when we're old, when we have less energy? And when you consider the fact that you might not even make it to that age, it just seems really stupid to me. Live every day like it's your last. Don't work to live, live to work. There's so many expressions out there that are reminding us of this, but people just seem to ignore them. As I slurped those noodles, I thought about the times when I had extended periods of work off. I was just able to accomplish so much when I didn't have to think about work all the time, when the weight of a job wasn't on me. Over an extended Christmas holiday, I had written an entire screenplay. When I was in between jobs, I wrote, produced, and directed a pilot. While these things didn't end up with a fat paycheck, at the time they were some of my most valued accomplishments. Things that I had a passion for that I started and finished after working hard. A real job never gave me that feeling ever. The soup helped me see into the future, to a simpler, better life, where money wasn't as valuable as time, and happiness could be found in something as simple as a delicious breakfast. Ooh, it's getting deep. I think I gave myself chills a little bit. Excuse me. A month or so later, we got back to Canada and a plan was set. Sarah would finish school, get her teaching degree, and I would work for a couple years, save up some money, and then we would go back to Southeast Asia to live. Sarah would teach science at an international school, and I would figure out how I could make money doing only things that I want to do. In Canada, I was a location scout. I found locations for television commercials to shoot. On paper, the job sounds pretty good. The director would tell me what he was looking for. I would go out, find the location, take photos of it, present him the photos. He would choose a few spots he liked, and then we'd go and see it in person, and then he'd ultimately choose the location. I saw a lot of cool locations. I really got to know Toronto, but the job was very stressful. There were very strict deadlines. Sometimes the director wanted something that just wasn't possible to shoot at. It wasn't a job that I could just turn off after a certain hour. I had to take phone calls all night just to make sure I got a hold of the people that I needed to meet my deadlines.
Wouldn't it be amazing? Getting up every day and playing.
Doing something that you love to do.
But it did pay really well. I was able to save up a lot of money, but to do that I didn't really go out for meals. I didn't spend money on hardly anything. I counted every penny. I was very frugal. I guess I could give you tips on how to save money, but it's really not that difficult. Just don't spend money. Don't buy things you don't need or things that aren't worth it. You know, go to the cheap grocery store. Don't have a car if you don't need one. I remember talking to one of my friends who had all kinds of cool toys. He was the opposite of me. He would get his paycheck and he would go out and buy something. And I asked him, why do you just spend your paycheck right away? Why don't you save some money? And he said, because it makes him feel good. It makes him feel better about all the shitty hours he spent working that week. And I had never really thought about it, but it makes perfect sense. but I actually preferred the joy I got from saving money more than the joy I got from spending money on something. So I guess my point is, maybe you have to be a certain type of person to pull this life off. I'm not really sure, but for me, saving money wasn't that difficult. Plus, it was all part of this plan. The more money I was able to save, the longer I'd be able to stay in Southeast Asia and not work, and the more time I'd have to figure out the life I want to have. Now, I know I'm lucky. I was able to find a job that paid me really well. I grew up in a middle-class household, so I never really struggled paycheck to paycheck. Now, I am aware that some people can't save money, period. For example, Sarah was going to university and she was working 2 jobs to pay for it and to pay to live, so she couldn't save a dime. So of course not everyone is as lucky as me, but I think a lot of Canadians at least come from a similar situation as I do, and they end up working, earning, and spending it just as fast as they're earning it. After 2 years of working, in 2014, Sarah graduated, she got a job in Vietnam, and we moved there. I quit my job, I was done doing things I didn't want to do, and I vowed to never work for anybody again. I just needed to figure out how to turn my passions into money to pay for the simple life that I wanted. Sarah's contract was for 2 years, and I definitely had enough money saved up to live in Vietnam for 2 years without working. So where to start? When you have 2 years to do whatever you want, what do you do? I did some blogging. I started vietnamenu.com, which is essentially a database of Vietnamese food. That actually took me 2 years to put together, and it didn't make me a cent, but it did help me discover my passion for food. I started doing research about food. I started cooking more. I started going down this path that maybe I wouldn't have discovered if I was working a full-time job. I didn't actually start making YouTube videos until the last 2 months or so of the 2 years. I had a YouTube channel, I was posting on it occasionally, but I never really considered it a possibility for a career. I think after one of my videos went viral, I monetized the channel and I saw that I was making about $100 a month off this one video. I was pretty naive at that time. I thought if I could just do 10 of these videos, then I'd be making $1,000 per month and I'd be able to live comfortably in Vietnam off of that. But of course that video didn't always make $100 a month. That dried up, but the idea of making money off of YouTube was planted in my head. It was kind of the perfect job for me. I had gone to film school, I always loved making videos, I had an interesting story to tell living in Asia. That first step of putting myself out there was the hardest, but I took that step, and at the same time Sarah's contract in Vietnam had ended and she got a new job in China, so we moved to China. We moved to Chengdu, China, and that's where I told myself, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna devote my time to putting out 1 video a week for the rest of my life and just focus on making this a career for myself. And that's what I've been doing. YouTube has a very steep learning curve. There's a lot that you don't think about. Writing the copy, marketing, thumbnails, analyzing the data. There's a ton of stuff that you don't think about, and that's before the writing, shooting, performing, and editing process of making the actual video. It's not a good way to make money. I figured it out once and I was making something like $1.70 an hour making these videos. So you really have to enjoy the process. Am I making a living off YouTube now? No, not really. I don't make enough money to pay for my life, but we continue to live in countries that are cheap to live in. My audience is growing every day, and it's surprising how little my savings have gone down in the 7 years that I've been living overseas. I discovered that it's easier to save money when you have time to do things like make food from scratch. For example, the other day I made some naan bread, the Indian flatbread, and it probably cost me about $1 to make like 6 or 7 of them. If I would have bought those in the store, it would have been $3 to $4. So just having the time to do stuff like that, to fix your own things, to clean your own house, whatever it is, it's saving you money. But there are a lot of things you have to be willing to accept to live this life. It's not for everyone, and it might even be too late for you. The biggest thing, you're probably not going to be able to have kids. When Sarah and I decided that we weren't going to have children, we actually never really decided it. It wasn't like a decision we made, we just never wanted children. So I guess I came to a realization that I wasn't going to have children, and no one was going to have to rely on me to make money for them. And that's huge. If your spouse or your kids are relying on you to make money, then maybe this life isn't going to work for you. You also have to accept that you're not going to own a lot of things. We've moved to a new country 4 times, and we packed everything we owned into 3 or 4 suitcases. It's a life of minimalism. We collect experiences, not items. And this probably also means that we'll never own a house, which I'm fine with. I think a lot of people, they buy a house, they mortgage it, they pay it off over their lifetime, and then in the end, they have this house that they can pass on to their kids. But we're not having kids, so we don't need that. Really, the ideal life for me, I'd go broke right before I died. Another thing that you're gonna have to cope with is there are people who think that you should be contributing to society by working and spending money on things that you don't necessarily need. I had to accept that there is no need for me to contribute to society or whatever bullshit people are being fed. To me, that's nonsense. It's my life. It's not selfish for me to live it the way I want to live it, as long as I'm not hurting anyone or leeching off the system. To be honest with you, I pay my taxes in Canada. I get nothing from it, so maybe Canada's leeching off of me a little bit. I also have to accept that people will think I'm a bum. A lot of friends from home tease me, saying that I just do nothing all day. They're mostly joking, but I think I have met people who think that I just rely on Sarah to pay for everything. That's not the case. We're two different people. We take care of ourselves. It goes back to the point where I don't have anybody that relies on me and I don't rely on anybody else. Whenever I hear somebody say, I can't wait for this day to be over or this week to be over, it kind of upsets me. You're having days in your short life that you just want to be over. How can you avoid that? That's what this whole adventure I've been on is about. Why do so many people spend 5 days a week doing something they don't want to do when they could just make some sacrifices that maybe wouldn't make them look as good? No big house, no fancy car, no impressive job, but ultimately they're spending a greater percentage of their life happy. I mean, happiness is the most important thing in life. At least it should be, but it seems like in this world that people just don't value happiness as much as they value money. So that's it. That's my spiel. I hope that you enjoyed it, and I hope that you learned a little something maybe. I don't know.
Prefer when I'm by myself. I don't wanna hang around y'all. Pray for good health. One day I'm gonna go ball. Fuck around and buy the whole mall. Breaking that cake. Flexing 700 in the bank. Not a superhero, I don't save. Look at my face. Look at my grades. Don't match up, no love. Fuck a date. I just fade. When I hit the jack, you can keep the pie. Every night I gamble, I stop. Yeah. When I check the cost, I was like,
Oh, that's expensive.
Ay, rolling flex in my ear.